Hey guys, so I had an issue with my tractor, with the PTO, and I think it'd be I'm just assuming, but any Kubota with this style PTO lever. Leave me a comment if any of you guys have had yours not disengage. Because I figured out a very easy fix. I read a couple things online about it, and they were talking cable adjustment and all that. Well, it wasn't a cable adjustment. So, anyways, we got to do a couple things before we start. Now, the first thing we got to do is you push your clutch all the way in. And just in case you weren't aware, you have that spring activated stud there. So while you're holding it down, slide that over. That keeps your clutch depressed so that the PTO's, everything's disengaged. Okay, so that's step one. Step two, and this is very important, we got to move our lever. Okay, put it in the middle so it can travel. So what was happening, a telltale sign that you're having problems or beginning to have problems is, when you pressed it forward, everything works. Okay, you're pulling back on that cable. The cable's coming back, and that's hooked to a lever. So, you're pulling back on the lever and disengaging. The lever has a spring hooked to it that wants to keep it disengaged. So that's why you got to lock it over here, you put it in the lock position. But now when you let go of it, see how it just goes back nicely? Okay, when I was letting go of it, the cable wasn't moving. So this boot is flexing way out like letter C, and so that told me something's binding, because I took the boot off and the cable looked fine inside there. I spray it, I've always kept the cable lubed, but there's no signs of rust or binding or anything like that. So I decided to go underneath to look, and now I'm going to show you what it is. But the big thing you got to keep in mind is that you want that lever over here to the side. You don't want it locked in one way or the other. All right, so we got the cable over there, or the lever, so it can move freely. Because if it doesn't, you'll have an issue underneath. But now what I do, it's hard to see it underneath here, but you want to go on underneath your rear tire here. So I'll crawl under there and then we'll come back. Okay, so we're underneath. That oil there is from actually the spray that I used, so that's all that is. But now we got to go in under the brake pedal around here by the casing, and here's our lever. Now you see how that spring hooks on the top, so that's telling you it wants to turn it clockwise. And if you look at the bottom, where the bottom of that spring hooks to the bolt on that shaft, see the rust there? Well, that was actually binding. That's what's happening. It was binding there. And that spring, when you engage it, you're pulling against that spring, and the cable's just pulling that lever back and engaging your PTO. When you release it, that spring with the tension on it just puts it right back to where it's supposed to. The problem was it was bound up so bad that it couldn't move. So I sprayed some penetrating oil in that up in there. And then I put my hand in, reached it up there, and you just work that lever back and forth. And that's why you don't want that locked in either way up above the lever, because it's got to be able to move. and it just became freer and freer and freer. And then now finally, when you disengage it, that spring will just move that lever back to the off position clockwise. So and if it's binding, you've pulled it back all the way, and it won't return forward because of the binding. And that spring is what pushes the cable, so the spring will just pull that cable through through its line, and that hard spring is supposed to keep it disengaged, naturally just disengaged, and it wasn't doing it. So that's all it was. But yeah, just throwing this out there to help you guys, and now that'll be part of my regular maintenance, is just to keep some oil up in there, and some liquid whatever to high moisture grease or whatever. But just yeah, so I've had this tractor 3 years, and it just started acting up. I noticed a couple times when I was mowing lawn it wouldn't disengage, and then when I hooked up my snowblower and I just did the test with it the other day, it wouldn't disengage, and that's what I found. And then I snowblowed for about 3 hours, and it worked flawlessly the whole time. So that's all it is. Just get a little oil up in there or some lubrication, and work that back and forth with your hand, and she should be good.